In May 2020 was the first time that I got to experience the Fractal world. I had the one without the headphone output. Initially, Kevin helped me get that over from the US. A lot has changed with the unit, a lot has changed with me, and I now do work for G66, who are the European distributor and Australian for the Fractal stuff. But I wanted to kind of do a video kind of looking over what's changed in the last 4 years and how the FM3, I think, sits in the current marketplace of modelers. This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Like many people report, the experience maybe when you first get into the fractal world, some of this I feel like is a little bit overblown, and some of it I think is based on people's experiences with the devices before the FM3, before the Axvex 3 and before the FM9, because the user interface used to be, so like on the Axe 8, I bought one of those after I had the FM3. Those are quite unwieldy, and you definitely want to be using the desktop editor. I used to use just the actual onboard editor for the FM3 before starting making videos for G66, where they asked if I would use the desktop editor. I think it's a bit easier for people to follow along. And as well, I guess that desktop editor is really simple to use and really decent. But yeah, the initial feeling will be one, I think, of overwhelm, because essentially there is no other modeler with as much in it as the fractal stuff, and I think that is one of the key things to bear in mind when you're looking at the other units, is that basically all of them put together wouldn't have the amount of amp models that this does in it. And I've kind of checked in on that, and that seems to still really be the case. That's the thing that I've said for a while, but Most of the other amp modelers have between 50 and 80, and they don't seem to grow particularly quickly. The Fractal stuff is way above 300 now, and still they are adding new stuff. So it's kind of an interesting place to be. I think it's for that reason, if I had to choose just one sort of desert island modeler, it would have to be, I think, the Fractal stuff, purely because even if Cliff never updated the stuff again, there's so much groundwork done, and the other companies have been saying, you know, that we want to catch up and we will catch up. It doesn't seem like any of them are really on pace, or maybe even have the same goal. So if you're someone who wants something a bit simpler and saying, well, why would I need 300 amp models? Probably you wouldn't. But the chances are that if you think of something you might want to check out, that one or two or three of the other modelers might have some of those things you want. I guess through sheer quantity, Fractal is much more likely to have what you're looking for in it, whether it's a specific Mesa Boogie amplifier, whether it's a specific Marshall Plexi, whether it's a specific Marshall Silver Jubilee, whether it's a weird boutique kind of amp like a Swart or a Splawn or a Fuchs, or, you know, name it, an actual Dumble, the Dumble HRM that Cliff owns that he's modelled in here. The Fractal world is where you're going to find that stuff. Do you want the Keeley Halo algorithm? That's in here, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's such a depth within there that the other modelers kind of just can't get to. And I don't know exactly what the reason is, but I think I was chatting to Thomas Blug the other day. Shout out Thomas if you're watching this video on Fractal. I don't know why you would be, but we were kind of discussing kind of how, like, Blue Guitar is obviously a small company as well, and Fractal is quite a small company, and I think because they don't have the layers of kind of corporate stuff, that they're able to concentrate on the things that they think matter, and it happens that they think the things that matter definitely resonate with a bunch of guitarists. So whether that's flexibility, you know, like the foot switches are the most flexible on any modelling unit. The grid routing, that's the most flexible on any unit. It's not really even close on these things as well, like long pressing these and 8 layouts. You know, the things you can do with the Fractal stuff is really crazy. It's kind of hard to explain in like one video at a time, but look at what Leon Todd does and look at what all the folks on the G66 do, Cooper Carter. Like, there's so much you could do with the Fractal units that even the potential that there is, I don't think has been tapped into yet. But that's kind of my feeling, like initially kind of overwhelmed. As the years have gone on, it still feels for sure like I'm new to this device pretty much every time I turn it on. And there's always something new to check out, whether it's Keith Urban's amplifier, Joe Satriani's amplifier, loads of cool stuff in there. And I think that is my feeling now, that if there was one thing that I could use going forward that would never have an update again, I feel like it might be the FM3 or the FM9 or the Aspect 3 because of that. Some of the other companies, particularly Line 6, I really love the HX Stomp and the Helix, particularly for their price point, and those are the things that I'm using every day. But the pace of updates has kind of slowed with the Line 6 stuff now. And also another thing that I feel like, because the company is smaller, the normal customer is going to get, I think, and let me know in the comments if this is not true for you, but in particular like G66, I think are known for having a really, really good customer service. Everyone that I know that has bought from them has said as much. And, you know, in the UK, you got the G66 UK with Sook running that now. So I could be fairly certain that if there was an issue, that I could get a replacement pretty quickly, which is not necessarily... Well, I guess I could buy a replacement of any of the other modelers, right? So like an HX Stomp, I could buy one off the shelf or a Helix, but I think actually getting something repaired or getting a warranty repair would take a bit longer with the other kind of more corporate stuff going on. There is a service centre in the UK for like the HX Stomp or whatever, but I think it takes quite a while from what I've read. I've not had any problems in terms of hardware, so I've had a few bits and pieces sent back and forth between G66 and me. I think the FM9 Turbo is what they've sent me at the moment, but the FM9 was perfect. The FM3, perfect. The AXFX3, perfect. Not had any issues. They're made of steel, and then they had this really decent covering, and I think they are actually kind of designed for touring, and that is the impression that I think you'll get if you see one in person. They are kind of, as I said before, built like a painter's drill. If you do take them on stage, people haven't seen them as much, and so I took the FM9 to a gig the other day, and the people were like, what is that? So as much as they don't necessarily have some of like the flashy vibes of like the Quad Cortex, which I think initially was kind of breathtaking, but perhaps as it ages, it kind of looks, is that really gonna last very well on a tour? Whereas these sorts of things, it kind of just looks like it's designed perfectly for that job, and I think that's why you see so many pros using them. In terms of big changes that there have been, one of my least favourite things to do in the Fractal world was select a cab. It used to just be like selecting from a big list of IRs. Now there is actually, like the Quad Cortex brought first, you can place with like a digital representation a mic around the cone, so that's great. Helix has that now as well, so that's really changed things in a big way for me. They have, of course, continued to update the actual amp modelling, and that's an ongoing thing. There's always new things to check out in that regard, sort of like a monthly sort of basis. There'll be an update to the... Almost like on a sort of monthly basis, there'll be something going on, like whether it's changing the way the phase inverters and all that, just, you know, really getting into the detail about how Cliff can improve the amp models. A really huge thing as well, there was this gapless preset and spillover thing update. So the FM3 now has this situation where you can actually, on one particular preset, you can have like 4 amp channels in the amp block. You can switch between those seamlessly, and if your presets are set up in such a way, so like say you have a delay and a delay on the other one, there are like 2 or 3 delay blocks, make sure that you've got kind of the redundancy built in. So if you have a delay doing something on preset A, you want to use delay block 2 as your main delay on preset B, if that makes sense, so that when things are switching across, they don't have to change, the algorithms don't have to change, you just change the blocks. It's the thing anyway, but I really think that's made it super, super, super giggable. I really like the form factor of the FM3. The foot switches are very, very flexible, and for me, I would have it so that I would toggle between 2 scenes with each foot switch, basically. So you'd have like a rhythm or rhythm B, solo or an alternate solo, clean and a clean with a delay. It's really great for that. The tones, of course, is Fractal. I don't think anyone's topped them in terms of like being most realistic. If you check, you know, other people's opinions on that as well, I think that remains the case that the Fractal stuff sounds really good. When I was first getting into this, the thing for me was I wanted to compare it to like the Helix, which at the time the HX Stomp was like £400, and people were saying, well, this is clearly a toy and clearly junk. The Helix and the HX Stomp has come on a long way since that time as well, and also I think other players entering the game, you see like in Leon Todd's comparisons, like the Helix Quad Cortex Fractal stuff seems to compare really well. And potentially even the Helix people think sounds, you know, great in those A/B kind of comparisons. You know, the Tone Master, for instance, not so much. Nowadays, I still think, well, there are so many other things going on in the Fractal world that I think, yeah, if you wanted to just buy one unit that you're like, well, clearly this does everything that I'm going to need, Fractal, I think, is more likely to get you there. Except for maybe the tone matching stuff, but the Axe-FX3 can actually do the tone matching. I just think that the community in general in Fractal has like a sort of trust that the amp models in here are going to be accurate enough that actually doing the tone matching is not so much something that we need to concentrate on. Is the sense that I get. Some of my favourite presets that I created in the intro there, it was John Cordy Tones 3 that I was using. That was basically designed to sound something like my kind of normal Helix tones, using a Robin Ford amp, stuff like that. Also, it's got amazing kind of ambient tones. One of my other favourite features is the Morgan AC20 in here, which sounds incredible for those kind of edge of breakup ambient vibes. And also there's, yeah, I put together like a preset doing some freezing stuff. So those are some of my favourite presets. You can grab all of my presets for Fractal on the Gumroad if you're a Fractal user. These are all compatible with FM3, and if you just drag them in for FM9 and Axe-FX3, they will also work as well. Don't use FractalBot to import them, but yeah, just drag them in, they should work. I'm using an expression pedal here in pedal 1 for the freeze particular. But yeah, the Fractal world, I think it's a rich ecosystem in which to create and play guitar. You can be confident that the modelling in there is really top tier of all of the amp modelers in terms of choice about what you get in there. Fractal is top of that. You can be confident really that the reverbs and the delays are really top tier as well. There's kind of no weak area that I can think of with the Fractal, except for maybe the onboard editor these days is going to be a bit trickier, but you're likely going to use the desktop editor, in which case you're going to be golden. So yeah, that's my experience with the Fractal unit. I'm really happy to be able to create videos exploring this every week with G66, and it helps to pay for some nappies as well. If there was a desert island situation and I had some power, I think it would be the Fractal stuff that I'd take, just because you'd never get bored of it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in another video soon. Cheers.